And that's the great thing about this business model is we were actually able to build wealth for our investors by helping them house low-income families. Section 8 has been shown to increase its rent roll to the landlord by an additional 10 to 15%. That $100,000 can either get me one property that makes me 5% annual, or that same $100,000 can be used to get me between 5 to 8 properties that gets me a 20 to 35% annual return on that capital. The good thing about this is your income is predictable. My name is Joseph Carter, and after spending 6 years in the United States Navy as a Navy corpsman, when I got out of the military, I realized that the best way to build wealth was in real estate. Now, don't get me wrong, I've tried other methods. I've done e-com, Amazon, Airbnb, fix and flips. I can tell you right now that one of the safest, most predictable ways to grow your income is using this real estate method called Section 8. What is Section 8? Well, Section 8 is a little-known government program that was created by Congress in 1974. And the whole point of the program was to give low-income families a safe and secure place to live without being stuck in slumlord-like conditions. Section 8 basically is a program that will pay a landlord roughly 10 to 20% above the fair market rent values to house a low-income family. You see, the government wants to motivate you to provide a house for a low-income family so that way they don't live on the streets. And so we have a slogan here at our company called Section 8 Solutions, and that is, build wealth by housing families. The reason why it's better than your 401k and your mutual fund is generally every year, based off historical data, Section 8 will increase your rent roll to you, the landlord, by 10 to 15%. On average, you're already making about 20 to 35% a year on your capital by housing low-income families on the Section 8 program. And additionally, every year after that, Section 8 has been shown to increase its rent roll to the landlord by an additional 10 to 15%. Imagine your mutual fund every year that you're making roughly 8% on increases by 10%. Now you're at 18%, increases the next year, increases another 10%. Now you're at 28%. Well, that is what Section 8 has done over the last 4 to 5 years. So I'm the CEO of Section 8 Solutions. Here's what we do for you, the investor. We actually help you build your real estate portfolio for you. You don't have to deal with the heavy lifting, all the headaches that comes with finding the right property, vetting the right tenant, dealing with lending services that may or may not help you qualify for this property, dealing with the government and all the bureaucracy that comes with filling out all the paperwork and providing all the documents. My company will actually do all that for you. We make this process very simple. We find you turnkey properties that will meet a cash-on-cash return of 20 to 35%. We help you vet the tenants. We market your properties for you. We even set you up with your own property manager after you've bought a property. Your only responsibility is saying, yes, I'll buy this property, or no, I don't want to buy this property. It's kind of like playing Tinder, except with real estate. Swipe left for no, swipe right for yes. Let me give you an example of one of our clients here. His name is Chad. Chad bought 3 properties with us. The reason why Chad went with us instead of doing this by himself is Chad lives up in Michigan. The properties that he bought are out in Tennessee. So what he did was he decided to hire us to make his life a lot easier. So not only did we help him by sourcing his properties, making sure that he has a high cash flow, but we also marketed his properties for him. We got them rented out with qualified tenants, and then we set him up with our own property managers in those areas. So the great thing about Chad is Chad can still focus on his family. He can still focus on his business. He doesn't have to worry about being a landlord at 2 o'clock in the morning because the commode broke, or because the outlets aren't working, or because some other thing went wrong on his property. We handle all that for him. Our property managers take care of all his properties, and he can sleep soundly at night knowing that his assets are being well managed. See, it's different versus if Chad went and did this on his own, where he tried to find the properties, maybe call realtors in the areas, ask them, is this a safe neighborhood? He doesn't know anybody out in Tennessee. Chad hasn't even visited Tennessee. And so now Chad doesn't have to worry about whether or not he's buying a property in a bad neighborhood, whether or not the tenant that's moving into the property lied on their application, or whether or not the property manager is actually doing their job and checking on that property on a monthly basis. Chad's been able to avoid all those headaches and concerns by hiring our company. That's what we are good at. We are good at finding you high quality assets that meet a cash on cash return of 20 to 35% or higher. And then you can rest soundly at night knowing that your property is properly managed and that you have a good tenant in that property and that's a safe asset for you to invest your money into. That's the great thing about this service is it is literally a done with you service that helps you avoid all the headaches, all the concerns, and we also provide you with the relationships that we have in these areas that are professionals in what they do. Our contractors, our property managers, our marketers, our realtors. They know these areas like the back of their hand, and that's why it's safe for you to trust this service to deliver you a top quality asset class that's gonna pay you on the first of every month, regardless of whether or not your tenant loses their job, gets a divorce, or their dog dies. You know for a fact you're still gonna get your money because the government pays you on the first of every month. That's why this asset class, using the Section 8 program, outperforms your 401k, your Roth IRA, and your mutual fund. Now, let's go into some of the misconceptions about Section 8 and what concerns people generally have when it comes to investing into that property. A lot of people are fearful that Section 8 is mostly just people who are on some type of drug addiction or part of some gang or are going to destroy their asset class. Well, let me tell you why that is less likely to happen. Mostly because Section 8 is a government program that generally takes you 2 to 3 years through an application process just to get approved to be on the program itself. So when these families actually get approved to get that Section 8 voucher, which is basically free rent for the rest of their life, the last thing that they want to do is lose that voucher. Because this is a voucher they can actually pass on to their kids when they pass away. That's a great thing about this program. So you have a high leverage point when you bring a Section 8 family into your house. The last thing that they want to do is break your rules, destroy your property, because all you're going to do is contact their care worker and you're going to let them know, hey, your tenant's messing up our property, and that person will likely lose that voucher. On top of that, we also buy properties in landlord-friendly states, so that way you have an additional leverage point of removing somebody from your property if you need to. The other great thing about Section 8 is at the end of the day, you have a guaranteed rent roll that you're going to collect on the first of every month. So let's talk about the pros of Section 8. Here's the pros of Section 8. One, you can bet that you're going to get paid on the first of every month, guaranteed by the government. Two, Section 8 generally covers between 80 to 120% of the fair market rent rates of that Section 8 property. So an example is if Section 8 is paying you $2,000 a month for a 4-bedroom property, Section 8 will likely cover between $1,600 all the way up to $2,400 of that Section 8 rent. Now, how do you get 120% of the fair market rent? Generally, it's going to come from somebody who's handicapped and needs some additional assistance or is very elderly. You're going to get a little bit more. But on average, you're going to see between 80 to 100% coverage of Section 8. What determines that 80%? A lot of times these Section 8 families are working. And so financially, they can cover that other 20% needed of that rent roll. And then the government gives you the assistance for the 80%. The other individuals that you're getting 100% coverage, those are going to be like your elderly or your single moms who aren't able to work because they have a lot of kids. Those are going to be your different factors, and there's other factors that will play. But you can bet the majority of your rent roll is going to be covered on the first of every month through Section 8, which is great because it doesn't matter what's going on in that person's life. You know for a fact that you're going to collect that rent. Another pro of Section 8 is we focus on properties between $60,000 to $120,000. Why? Well, because what we find is in a lot of the counties around the country is you can get a healthy margin that is roughly 20% above fair market rents for these properties. If we buy a house that's a 3-bedroom property, you're going to get roughly $1,400 a month based on the county that you're located in. If you get a property that's 4-bedroom property, you're looking at getting between $1,600 to $2,000 a month based on the county that property is located in. Now the mortgage on these properties, because we're looking at $60,000 to $120,000, is going to be anywhere between $450 a month all the way up to $750 a month as a mortgage. So you have a very healthy delta of margin, a profitable margin in between what you're collecting from Section 8 versus what your mortgage cost is on that property. The other great thing is the properties that we find are mostly turnkey. So you're not worried about buying a property and having to invest another $50,000 to $80,000 into fixing the property because the property itself is roughly $50,000 to $80,000. So your cost generally, if you're looking at getting a property and you do need to fix some things here and there, was mostly going to be like $5,000 or less. If any properties need more than $5,000 in repair or rehab, generally we pass on those properties unless we get some seller concessions or seller credit when we go to buy that property. The good thing about this is your income is predictable. That's what we love most about Section 8 is you get a predictable income. And before you buy these properties, you're getting a strong inspection on them, so you're going to know where the problems lie maybe in the future. Is it going to need a new roof in a couple years? How's the paint? How's the floorboards? How's the carpet? How's the piping, right? You're going to find out whether or not this property is good or if it's a dog with fleas. And obviously we want to avoid the properties that are more like a dog with fleas. So the other great thing about one of our services is our lending partners. Our lending partners will help you get these properties for as little as 20% and sometimes even 15% down as a down payment to purchase these properties. You know, the methodology here is use the bank's money to buy these properties and use as little of your capital as possible to purchase these properties. So the traditional conventional loan that we use to buy most of these properties is called a 20% DSCR loan, where you put down 20% of the cost of that property to acquire that asset. Well, in other cases, we're actually able to get even lower, as low as 15% to buy a lot of these properties, which actually helps you get a higher cash on cash return. You see, on paper, it doesn't matter how much debt you are actually acquiring in real estate. What matters is how much cash you have to come out of pocket for the returns that you are going to see after all is said and done. So we like to focus on these properties that we're able to put down 15 to 20%. Now remember, these properties are priced between $60,000 to $120,000. If we compare that to a normal rental property at a higher price of between $400,000 to $800,000, then you're looking at putting down a lot higher capital, a lot higher amount of capital with a smaller return. Traditional real estate, your return on that's going to be more like 4 to 5% annually. But with Section 8, because the property is so much less and Section 8 generally pays you 10 to 20% higher than the fair market rent rates, you're actually seeing a higher return of 20 to 35%. Much more appealing. So for that same down payment, or let's say a $500,000 property where you have to put down 20%, that's $100,000. That $100,000 can either get me one property that makes me 5% annual, or that same $100,000 can be used to get me between 5 to 8 properties that gets me a 20 to 35% annual return on that capital. And so when you break down, leaving your $10,000 to $15,000 in a bank account or a mutual fund for that, 3 to 4% yearly return, it's much better to take that money and put it in a low income house that's on the Section 8 program that's going to earn you a 20 to 35% annual return or even higher. So simply, it's just a math game at that point. I either take $100,000, I buy a $500,000 property, and I rent that out for maybe 4 to 5% annual return, or I take $100,000, I buy 5 to 8 properties. That's going to yield me a 20 to 35% annual return over the course of time. Remember, these properties are turnkey, so they've already been rehabbed. All the minor fixes have already been done. All the major fixes have already been checked out through the inspection, so you know what you're able to avoid. And now you have true, predictable income with that property that you bought and are able to move forward on. So that wraps up what Section 8 is in a nutshell. Stay tuned for what we're about to release next. We have some softwares that we created that's going to help you find higher profitable Section 8 properties in your area or just throughout the country. Please feel free to like, subscribe, stay tuned for our next videos. I look forward to helping you build a successful cash flowing real estate portfolio. Until then, have a great day.